Hi, this is Don Debelak. You've reached the seventh video in the series, creating your introduction plan called Financing Understanding the Options. Now, this first slide talks about all the different types of funding. This is sort of a table of contents for the upcoming presentation, and we're going to go into each one of these slides in greater depth. One of the things I want to mention to you, though, is I've talked to you about going to the Chamber of Commerce. You're going to sometimes meet angel investors. Check and see with your local Small Business Development Center, which you can find at www.sbdc.org. And I mentioned them several times in other videos to see what kind of entrepreneur events they have in your town. Usually, every town kind of sponsors some type of events where entrepreneurs who are needing for money can set up booths and make presentations. This is another chance for you to go and meet people who are in this industry. Plus, you can meet other small companies who are, on the same tack you are, trying to start up a company and start producing ongoing revenue. So you have money from the individuals, manufacturers, distribution, crowdfunding, which is a newer source. You have bank loans or SBA loans, private placements, which is a type of stock offering that you do, which you're not really going public, but you're offering that to mostly to accredited investors. You have crowdfunding. Now, the first crowdfunding I mentioned really was what we call rewards-based crowdfunding. That's where you put your product on and let people pay for the product in advance, and then once you actually have a product, you give them a product. So that's what called in the industry reward-based. You can also try to raise money through crowdfunding for investors, but that's a little more cumbersome, and there's some SEC regulations which make it not all that friendly. Then there's venture financing, and finally IPOs. Money from individuals. You have self-funding, family and friends. Industry helpers might decide to invest in your company and buy a part of it if they really like your idea. You have angel investors, and these angel investors, you're going to run into them. Maybe you'll meet some at the SBDC, but most of you run into them at entrepreneur events or new business events where new businesses get to set up and pitch their products. If you don't have them in your town, you will have them in a nearby town, so be sure to check with your local Small Business Development Center to see what kind of events are coming up. You can also pick up your angel investors by working with the Chamber of Commerce, talking to other successful businesses. Sometimes there's businesses that are anxious to help newcomers in the market kind of expand the city. And of course, crowdfunding is really getting the money from individuals. Crowdfunding is when you put up a video on a site like Kickstarter, and those, you ask for a certain amount of money and you ask for a certain amount of reward. You'll say, if you give me X amount of money, I'll send you one of my first products when it comes out of production. Money from manufacturers. Well, in-kind investments, this is when a manufacturer does work for you but doesn't charge you, or he charges you much less than he normally would. So if a manufacturer wants your business, they're working with you on your product, and they make your prototype for you, and they don't charge you, that would be considered an in-kind investment. Extended terms. Normally, when you place an order with the manufacturer, you might have to give a 50% down payment and 50% 30 days after the product's complete. Well, this is sort of onerous for a lot of inventors, so if they extend terms and say you don't have to pay till 90 days after you get the products, that's really an investment from the manufacturer. Amortized tooling. What this means is that, say that your tooling costs $15,000, but rather than forcing you to put the $15,000 up front, the manufacturer says, okay, I believe in your idea, I think it's going to sell, so why don't we do this? We'll add a quarter to the cost of every product we make for you, and then you can pay for the tooling by paying an extra quarter. Normally you end up having to pay maybe 50 to 100% more for the tooling when you amortize it, but it avoids having to pay that money up front. Prototypes, I've mentioned before, they might do that. Product development, they might have designers that help you. They might have engineers who review your product and make suggestions and changes and not charge you. These are all different things that a manufacturer might do to help you. Sometimes they might make an outright investment. They might invest in your company for an exclusive deal that you'll continue to manufacture. They don't want you to work with the manufacturer, get some products, do some early sales, and then run overseas. So sometimes they'll do um, a partial investment, and sometimes they'll want to do joint venture funding and become partners so that they have better protection and hold on to the product once it's successful. Again, it all depends upon how much they believe in your idea. Money from distribution channel, well, you can get cash deposits just like your manufacturer might ask for 50% down. You can ask your distribution channel to prepay orders, to pay in 10 days, or to pay up front. Sometimes these companies will want to make an outright investment in return for an exclusive agreement that you'll only sell through them. Some of them will want to join venture terms, and sometimes they just pay you for exclusive distribution rights. Usually it's an investment, but sometimes you can get a payment without an investment in the company. Money from crowdfunding. Now, crowdfunding started with Kickstarter, but it's all over the internet now. There's many companies on the internet. Pebble Watch, which makes a watch that competes with Apple Watch, raised $20 million on the crowdfunding. And they did that by saying, uh, we will give you one of our watches for a $100 investment once the product is ready. They raised $20 million. Coolest Cooler is a Kickstarter startup crowdfunding company that was also very successful. I put the website up here. It's pretty long, but if you get a chance and you can go to that site, just put in Coolest Cooler Kickstarter, and it should come up on an internet search. You can offer a product which is called rewards funding or shares. But the SEC said they were going to make it really kind of conducive for companies to raise investors on a Kickstarter or other crowdfunding sites. But then they've come back, and it's really not anywhere near as easy, and they still have quite a few regulations about what you can do. Of course, the drawback of crowdfunding is if you put up, you want to raise $300,000 and you don't raise it, then you don't get any of the money. Kickstarter does take about 5 to 10%. But basically, to go on the site and get started, all you need is a really high quality video. And usually it's about $5,000 to make a video that's good enough for crowdfunding. You can do bank loans, SBA loans. Again, your Small Business Development Center will help you do this. They typically require 20% or so in down payments or of your investment. So if you need, for example, let's say $200,000, the banks are going to look for you to put up $40,000. If you need $50,000, they'll look for you to put up $10,000 to $15,000. Often you can get support from the state who wants to encourage new businesses. This is why I really recommend you go see your Small Business Development Center, because you can find out really what the state has available and what's going on in your market that really might help you. Of course, banks and loans are not quite as good as the other types of investments, because what you have to do is start paying back loans right away. But it does help you keep control. The minute you take on investors or you're getting money from your manufacturer or distribution partner, you give up some degree of control. You try to keep whole ownership, but if they have an investment, they're going to want to see what you're doing, and they're going to want to influence your decisions. As far as loans, most inventors who start out with a loan, they use assets such as their home, have co-signers like their parents or someone else who has assets, or their siblings or some other family member with assets to get started as a down payment or protection for the loan. Basically, the bank's not going to really be willing to loan you too much money unless you have a firm agreement with a manufacturing partner or a distribution partner, or unless you have piled up considerable sales to show the product will sell. Private placement. Now, private placement is a stock offering, but you're not a public company. You're just a private company. So usually you need you do need accredited investors, which are people who make $1 million per year or have over $2 million in assets. Usually you're allowed some investors who aren't accredited, but it's a limited number. And this is really how the crowdfunding has come out too, where You really need only you're restricted to have only many small investors, and you have a lot of terms for disclosure and things like this, where you have to give a lot of information to your investors before before they buy. Typically, the way the private placement works, and this is why the Chamber of Commerce is working out, is you get one angel investor or one sort of stockbroker type person who's used to raising money for private companies, and they then go out and get their other investors among their friends. Usually you only are able to get one or two really people to start, and then those people go out and sell others, but of course they're taking a commission, or they get additional stock, or they get some benefits from promoting your product. So in a private placement, if you raise $1.5 million, it's not unusual that you'll have to pay about $150,000 to the people who are actually arranging for all the finance. And always, whenever you're raising a substantial amount of money, have a good lawyer who's used to doing this. Get these lawyers from the Small Business Development Center and use them, and also use the SBA offices in your state for assistance. But don't go into any kind of a financing deal with raising money without a lawyer, to make sure that you're actually covering all of your basics and being legal in every way. Venture funding. Now, venture funding is very rare for them to fund a basic startup unless it's a real high-tech company. But it's really good to go to venture financing conferences. It's good to check out your venture financing group, because this is a good place for you to run into some of these individual money raisers who really work on private placements, or just work to get you maybe your first $50,000 to get you going. But they know the market, and if you go to the venture funding, you'll run into these people. You might check out the Pratt's Guide, www.prattsguide.com. Find some of the venture people in your area. Your small business administration, you have an office in your state. Contact the state and see if they can tell you when there's conferences or when they're meeting. And sometimes you might have to go to a regional office if you're from a smaller city. But venture capital is not, it's very hard to get it for an inventor. I mean, you have to have a tremendous amount of technical expertise in an area, or you have to have extremely strong patent protection. And so, for the most part, it's not something entrepreneurs can do. Again, you need that strong local investor to help you even get into venture capital. And the last way to raise money, which comes way later than most inventors are, is an initial public offering. This is where you actually register your stock with one of the exchanges, usually an OTC exchange, and you put out an IPO and raise money. I mean, if this way, most companies are raising anywhere from 5 to 10 million up. There's a lot of regulations for doing this. There's a lot of reporting requirements to the SEC. So usually this is something a company might do, an inventor company, maybe 3 to 4 years after, if they're really successful. Otherwise, it's really not worthwhile to pursue IPOs. So basically, on funding, when you're going back and looking at this again, get a strong investor package. Try to get an investment out of your manufacturer or distributor or your industry insiders. That's the kind of leverage that's going to help you get angel investors. If you're self-funding, concentrate on self-funding just through the beachhead period, just so you can prove the product will sell. And then once you do that, then you're also going to have a much better avenue. Through the beachhead area of sales, though, you're really, the manufacturer's your best source of funding. Maybe you can get crowdfunding or funding from yourself or family and friends. This really is why the beachhead is so important when I mention it. And if you go to our video series, Pumping Up Sales, you'll find quite a bit of information there about the beachhead. So get that established, get success, and build on your momentum, and then you'll be in a much better position to get financing from your manufacturer, distributors, other industry insiders, or possibly angel investors.